Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are. Welcome to Beach Walk Blog. And today, my voice is a little bit croaky. I actually lost my voice a few days ago. It's finally come back just about enough to do some talking, so I thought I'd do this one. I want to talk about healing. Healing, your body healing from an injury. And the first thing I want to talk about is when you are injured, because you will get injured, no doubt. You know, negating all injuries is not possible. It's a question of, you know, how long are we out for when we get injured? And you know, we all suffer little niggles. We could call those low-level injuries. Let's just talk about them as niggles, and we deal with them in a way that either pisses them off more or helps them to become less niggly, or in other words, help them to heal. Now, if we create an environment of stress, that is an environment that is not going to help something heal. So when we get injured, when we get a niggle, what we want to do is create an environment that supports that healing capabilities where that injury is. So we want to avoid things that stress it out, that piss it off, that make it worse, that tell you that it's painful. And we want to create an environment that is healing friendly. So what things slow down the healing process? Well, basically pissing it off and taking away blood flow. So things we want to avoid stressing. That includes stretching. We want to avoid icing an area, because ice restricts blood flow, and blood flow is how we heal. We have to create an environment where there is some firstly blood flow and heat. When we have an area that's warm, that's heat, you know, it's getting hot, that generally means that we're getting a lot of blood flow to the area. So heat, rubbing it, MFR, right? Those are good things because you're going to stimulate the area. So avoid stretching, avoid things that cause pain. Avoid anything that causes it to be painful. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole pain is, you know, in your brain and all of that. No, I'm not going to get into that. I'm just going to say to you, as a general rule, just avoid things that cause you pain. Just avoid things that cause pain to the area, okay? If it hurts when you do X, then do Y, and if it doesn't hurt, carry on doing Y. If you do Z and Z hurts it, don't do Z, do A. You know, there's so many different things that you can do that there's no need to do things that cause it pain, right? Because causing it pain is probably pissing it off, probably irritating it, could be making something worse. Just avoid it. So stretching, avoid it. Anything that gives you pain, avoid it. Icing, avoid it. All right? These are things that are just, they're pretty obvious, really. Work on getting blood flow to the area. So that doesn't mean rest it, compress it, elevate it. No, these are things that actually delay healing or don't help it to heal. So don't rest. Do whatever you can do that doesn't cause pain, because doing things help it to get blood flow. Doing things, doing stuff, doing anything that uses the area is going to help it. So, you know, even if you're laid up in bed, move, bend and flex whatever joint it is, right? That's going to help to get blood flow to it. If you've got an ankle injury and you can't walk, at least try and put weight on it. Wiggle your toes. You know, write the alphabet with your big toe. Wiggle the toes around. Move the ankle as much as you can without pain or within pain tolerance. Okay? So the question, what can I do to speed up the healing? Firstly, don't do anything that slows down healing. Okay? Now, I'm going to briefly just touch on the word inflammation. Now, inflammation is a good thing. Okay? Inflammation is a good thing. There might be a few people who are listening to this just now start screaming, I'm clicking off this is bollocks, this is BS. No, it isn't. Inflammation is the way your body actually heals. If you have inflammation, you cannot see inflammation. What you see is swelling. Okay? Don't confuse inflammation and swelling. They are two very, very different things. Inflammation is a process of signaling and bringing good stuff. Let's just keep it really simple. Just bringing good stuff to the area that needs to heal. That is the inflammatory process, the inflammation process. It signals that certain things have got to come into the area and fix it and heal it. Okay? Swelling is what happens after the inflammatory process has happened. And the inflammatory process is a process over, 1, 2, 3, 4 days. It takes time. And throughout that process that takes time, swelling will occur because that process is ongoing. And the byproducts of the inflammatory process are trying to get out of the area. Those waste metabolites are trying to get out of the area. And if they can't get out of the area because you're icing it, compressing it, and elevating it, which means that you're negating blood flow, you're negating lymph flow, you're not moving it, which means negating both blood flow and lymph system flow, then you're going to get all of those waste metabolites are going to get stuck in the area and it swells. That's the reason why you get swelling. So again, I'm going to reiterate that. Inflammation is not what you see. Okay, inflammation is not swelling. What you see when it gets all puffy is swelling. So try and understand the difference between those two things. You do not see inflammation, you see swelling. Okay, so if you see that, that is your signal to start moving as much as you can. Move, because what you need to do is get all of that crap out the area. And the only way you do that is by moving. Okay? The lymph system is a passive pump system, and it only pumps when you move, which is why movement is part of the healing process. Okay? Now, in order to get continued stimulation and healing to the area, you've got to keep moving. And when you keep moving, that's what happens. You get that healing process. Now, as you start to heal and things become generally less painful, you'll be able to load it more. So what we say is load it within pain tolerance, because your pain tolerance is going to increase as you heal. All right, you'll be able to tolerate more load, which is essentially the pain is going away, but there's still some risk there. If you do too much too soon, you might re-injure the area. So use pain as your guide. Okay? Again, go back to what I said before. Try to avoid too much pain. Avoid the things that create a poor healing environment, i.e. delay healing. So icing it, stretching's just out the window. Just forget stretching exists. Don't even go there. Resting, compressing, elevating. Get those out of get that RICE acronym, rest, ice, compression, elevation. Just get that out of your head. It does not help. Okay, so you want to heal, you want to speed up the healing process, just don't do things that slow the healing process down. Okay, the healing process is actually really quick and it needs you to be active throughout it, but it also, and this is where what I'm going to talk about next, it also needs you to load correctly. Okay? Correctly. Now, people have argued with me in the past saying, oh, any movement is good movement. Yeah, I disagree with that. Any movement is good movement. I disagree with that. Okay? Now, there is no right movement or wrong movement. There is only movement. Whether it's right or wrong is determined by what your goal is. So, if your goal is to create stress patterns in the body that promote things to get stronger in a certain way, you have to train and move in a certain way, because the only way you create those stress patterns is by moving in a certain way. Okay, so if I want to strengthen my shoulder, I want to strengthen my deltoids on the shoulder, I have to do things that create stress and strain on my deltoid muscles. It's that simple. Now, as I've said before, squats do not work or train the hamstrings. Okay? They have to. The movement is specific to a squat, and it only uses certain muscles, or it only trains certain muscles. Now, as we know, it almost pretty much negates the hamstrings, and it only works the external rotating adductors. That's not good for runners. So, if you have an injury and you've done your gait analysis, you can now see what's going wrong. Then you can start training your body specifically to the running movement, and you can start training that movement. And that is what the runner's rehab and the basic 8 and basically the entire sling method does. It trains the body in different ways specifically to the movement of gait. It's a rotational movement. It's not up and down. It's not left to right, side to side. It's not just forward and backward. It's a rotational pattern. Okay, so what we do is we train the body specifically. We load it specifically in a specific way. So when we do that, it then heals in a specific way according to the strain patterns and the stresses that we're putting on the body, onto every part of the body. Okay? And that's the reason why we do things the way we do, because what it does is it puts stress and strain into the body, and stress and strain is a good thing in a training environment if it's done correctly. Right? So we stress and strain the body according to the way we want it to get stronger, or in the case of an injury, the way we want it to heal. Okay? So you have to stress and strain the body in a certain way to get it to heal in a certain way. And that is Wolff's law and Davis's law. Okay, the law of soft tissue, the law of bones, the law of healing of soft tissue, and the law of healing and adaptation of bones. All right, it's the same thing. It's the same principle, but it's specific. Healing is specific to the stresses and strains that we put through our body at the time of healing. So if we want to heal and become stronger in a certain way so that these things don't happen again, we have to then stress and strain the body and heal in a certain way so that those things, specific things, get stronger and adapt. Okay, so that's the laws or the rules, the laws of adaptation, Wolff's law and Davis's law. Now these things are so simple to understand, you just have to accept them. Okay, we heal specifically to how we stress and strain our body. So if we heal specifically to how we stress and strain our body, and we adapt specifically to how we stress and strain the body, stress and strain the body in a specific way to force the adaptation that we want. It's that simple. It's so simple. So if we know that running requires a specific pattern of movement, train it using that specific pattern of movement, and it will adapt. It's just that simple. Now, anybody who is claiming to be science-based or evidence-based, if I throw that law at you and you come back with an argument against that law, you are not evidence or science-based. If you are telling runners to do squats to get better at running, and we know all of the things we know about squats, i.e. they don't work, they don't train the hamstrings, they only train the external rotation adductors, they overtrain the quads, they don't train the rectus femoris, right? All of these things, they're just... You have to go with the science if you're gonna be science or evidence-based. You can't have it both ways. You just can't have it both ways. So if you're getting advice to do squats to become a better runner, that's not evidence-based. It's not science-based. That's crap. Alright, I'm gonna wrap it up because this is all about healing and adaptation, creating the environment that we want. So, like I said, you need blood flow to heal. You need inflammation to heal, but you also need to get the byproducts of inflammation, which are swelling. That's the swelling that happens. We need to get that out of the area. The only way you do that is by moving to pump the passive lymph system and to get blood flow into the area. Okay? So, to heal as fast as you can involves doing the things that don't slow it down. Okay? So, no ice, no rest, no compression, no elevation, movement, warmth, blood flow, healing, load. Avoid the things that give you pain. Okay? And there we go. Train the body specifically. You'll get a specific outcome. Alright? Have a great rest of your day. Bye.